Good evening, everyone. All right, we'll get there, we'll get there. My name is Carlos Bossert. I'm the Director of Programs and Museum Practice here at the Haitian American Museum of Chicago. Welcome to our space. Our mission is to promote and preserve Haitian art, culture, history, and community in Chicago and beyond. We're very excited that this is actually our first year being a part of the BMRC-FOCAS internship, and we're really excited to host this really great event. A couple of folks I just want to say thank you to for making this possible. To Lou, Samaya, thank you so much for coming and bringing everyone here. We have our videographer here who is going to have a really great post look at everything. So make sure you're ready with your presentations. Also, we have Eve Mangerton back here, who is our collection specialist and librarian. And of course, Elsie Hector Hernandez, who is our founder and CEO of the Haitian American Museum of Chicago. Also, with it being our first time with the BMRC FOCAS internship, I also do want to acknowledge Jenny, who was our intern here at the Haitian American Museum of Chicago. Jenny was our collection specialist intern, working with Eve on a couple different projects that you hear about today, but she really did an incredible job, and I'm really excited to hear about the other projects that folks were working on during their time at the internship. Just super quickly about the space that you're in. This is our brand new museum space. We actually purchased this building in November of 2025, and we reopened to the public March 21st of 2026. So we just started bringing back tours. We had a 40 group of high schoolers this morning from Madison, Wisconsin that drove in. We have you all here this evening. So it's really special that we hold these types of events in the museum, as we really want to be more than a typical museum, be a space where community can be here with us, other than just the regular programming and events that we do. Afterwards, after the presentations, we will have an opportunity. I'll be giving a short guided tour of the museum. So if you do want to stick around for that, you can see some of our art and artifacts that we have here in the space. Other than that, just make sure to get involved with the museum after your time with us today. We have some great programs coming up still for the month of May, which is Haitian Heritage Month. We have a program tomorrow, a couple programs next week, as well as a lot of really great exhibits and initiatives happening for the rest of the year here in our brand new space. So thank you all so much for being here today. I know we have some delicious food, some Haitian food that we'll enjoy here in just a moment, but we really do appreciate it. And if you do need anything, please definitely make sure to let us know. Welcome to our space. Thank you so much for being here.
So welcome, everyone. My name is Samaya Ahmed. I'm the Executive Director of the Black Metropolis Research Consortium. Now I want to thank the Haitian American Museum of Chicago, first of all, for just existing and being, and for keeping up this important history. It has been influential to African American history as well. I mean, Toussaint Louverture is someone who, if you look at early Negro History Week, almost all of them feature something about Haiti and the Haitian Revolution as a part of African American History Week. I myself have been really blessed to be able to visit Haiti multiple times, and so it's really, I'm happy that this place exists. So I want to thank them for letting us host it here and for being a part of the BMRC's FOCAS grant this year. So for people who are maybe not that familiar with the BMRC, the Black Metropolis Research Consortium, we are a consortium that cultivates and stewards a network of all who seek to document, share, understand, and preserve Black Chicago experiences. So just as we currently have 29 member organizations. So that's libraries, archives, museums. Some of them are academics, libraries and archives. And then we have the community archive. So this grant, the FOCAS grant that we've gotten from the Mellon Foundation, was really geared towards community archives. So one of the things that we had to do when we knew that we were going to receive this grant was to increase the numbers of community archives who are members. So this is something that we've been happy to be able to do. So the FOCAS grant is this really nice initiative that was actually started at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, many years ago. So the University of California, Los Angeles had been doing this work for many years. And then when they went to renew their grant, the Mellon Foundation encouraged them to expand it beyond UCLA and to expand it across the country. And so I was invited to be a part of that expansion, and so brought that to the BMRC to expand it to community archives in the Chicago area, focusing on African American or African diaspora history. So it's a 3-year funded program. We're in year 2. So the people who are the interns who will be presenting today are from our second cohort, and next year, God willing, we'll have the last cohort. So this is for master students in library science who are ideally at least in their second year of the program, and so. In addition to the people you see presenting tonight, you should know that there are probably a total of maybe 30 to 40 other students around the US and in Canada who are also in the same grant. And so we combined received a little bit over $6 million for this for 3 years. There's talk of renewing it for another 3 years. So let's just be hopeful. Okay, so this is just showing you some of the other institutions that are on the grant. So we have a website, archivalfocus.org, if you want to know more about all the other organizations, the work they're doing. There's some blog posts by interns, but you can see all of the other universities that are a part of this: UCLA, Dominican University, East Carolina University in North Carolina, University of Arizona, Queens College, the University of British Columbia, University of Washington. And so these are, and McGill in Canada. I generally sometimes just give this definition because sometimes people say, what is a community archive? I think probably a lot of people in this room have a sense of it. But there is this idea, obviously people have been documenting their own communities, their families for a long time. But when we talk about community archives, what we're trying to say is that we're trying to talk about the idea that there's people who are marginalized, who decide that they would like to document themselves as opposed to waiting for information about themselves to show up in mainstream or traditional archives. So this is a definition by Michelle Caswell. She calls them marginalized identity-based community archives. So these are the spaces where people have decided to document themselves and their shared history on their own terms. So they might not necessarily follow the best practices of the archival, library, or museums field. They are just doing whatever they would like to do to document that. These are our partners. The University of Chicago used to have a library school. I think actually the University of Chicago had one of the first library schools in terms of a master's degree, because library school used to be something for a BA a long time ago. But they closed in 1989. But so for us to get students for this project, we are very grateful that Dr. Kim Black Parker, who's one of our board members, who's at Chicago State University, has helped us to connect with MA students in library information science at Chicago State. And we've also reached out to Dr. Maria Bond at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, they also have a library school. And so we are able to get students from those two programs. Anyway, these are just some pictures from year one. Last year's cohort, we took them to the Society of American Archivists, where some of the students presented a poster about their experiences. Can you do the next one? Right, and they were able to, we had a big meeting of students from all the other programs in California, and went to see some community archives and community spaces in California. So that was a great experience. We will do that this again this year. So in July, 1 week after the World Cup, we will be going to, and that matters because that's why we will be going to Canada, to the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, where we will have a convening of the FOCAS interns at the Archival Education and Research Initiative Conference. And that's one of the things that's built into the grant. So Mellon Foundation is paying for all of that. So the trip and everything. If you want to know what's the original goal, the idea of this is that the only way we can make sure that marginalized histories have a chance of seeing other generations is if you have those kind of people in the room when decisions are being made about what's historically significant. And so the whole point of this initiative is to give students of color and people from other marginalized backgrounds, give them a real chance of getting the professional experience they need and be paid for it, because unpaid labor is what most internships are. And so the idea is we pay people a living wage, and we also give them the experience they need to buff up their resumes so that they have a chance of being competitive in the field of archives and cultural heritage. Oh wait, so we just want to thank, so these are our hosts. I borrowed the slide from Tolu. It's a very nice slide. So share and share alike. But these are our, so in addition to the Haitian American Museum of Chicago, where we're at today, we have the Southside Home Movie Project. So Kelly is an intern there. We have the Chicago Black Social Cultural Map, and Ellie is there. Movin Legacy, where Kirk is at. So you'll hear about all these. Shorefront, where Doxy, and the National Public Housing Museum, we have Jenny. So we'll have everyone talking today about their work. So this is a part of in year 2000, because people thought the world was going to end in 2000. The Comer Foundation paid for photographers to go all over Chicago and document the year 2000. So this is and that's a collection that's at the University of Illinois Chicago's archives, if you're interested, and they're also one of our members. But thank you very much. So the plan is that we have the interns will present about the work they've been doing this year. So there we go. Here we go.
Yeah, my name is Tolu Balogun. I'm a postdoctoral fellow with the BMRC, and I'm the program coordinator for the BMRC-FOCAS internship program. I just want to thank Mellon Foundation for making this possible, and thank you for being able to attend. So I also want to thank the interns for their hard work over these months. And we have 6 interns who are going to be presenting their work so far. First, we have Jenny, who's going first, and after Jenny, we have Kirk Stevens, and after Kirk Stevens, Doxy from Shorefront, and we have Lisa from National Public Housing Museum, and then we have Ellie and Ellie from Onipod Performance, and Kelly from the Southside Home Movie Project. So, hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we welcome Jenny. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jenny, and I have the luxury of presenting first. So this is my 2025-2026 BMRC-FOCAS internship experience. So I had the lovely time of being hosted right here by the Haitian American Museum of Chicago, HAMOC. Our mission is, of course, to preserve and promote Haitian art, culture, history in Chicago and beyond. I also want to highlight the fact that we are one of 2 Haitian American museums in the country. So it's a really special place to be, and I don't take it for granted that I was hosted by this lovely organization. So primarily, my focus during my time here as an intern was to work on HAMOC's Cuba collection. The Cuba collection, to give you some background, it started off with some correspondence between our CEO and founder, LC Hector Hernandez, and also Mr. Francisco Diaz of the Guantanamo Haitian Cultural Center. So these 2 organizations across the country kind of bonded over this shared mission of promoting and preserving Haitian art and culture, especially as it relates to the Haitian diaspora. Through these correspondences, the idea of thorough and developed research in Cuba developed. And in March 2024, our Director of Programs and Museum Practice, Carlos Bossart, actually went over to Cuba as a researcher. So the Cuba collection is like an amalgamation of this research project. And so part of this project is already live right now on DLOC, the Digital Library of the Caribbeans. 53 items of the collection are available right now as we speak. So you can view some of the wonderful digital images and videos that are live right now. So here are a few of my favorites. As I inherited this project, so 53 are live and completed, but there's 278 total images and videos of the entire collection, right? So I'm inheriting a pretty big pre-existing metadata framework template. Have to remain consistent with the 53 that's already been up and live and work within this like spreadsheet type system, filling in the metadata fields for all of these remaining 225 digital items, videos, photos, and so forth. After the metadata fields are largely created as an original cataloger, because these are all unique items, of course, I had to translate them into French, Spanish, Haitian Creole using digital translation tools. And then finally, the most important part, remaining consistent with everything. So my process, I broke it down into kind of 4 steps here. I first review the item. That's me opening up the file, seeing what's in front of me, looking at the video, looking at the image. Then I interpret it. So that's where I do the research, identify what is researchable. I look at any kind of patterns, subjects, or locations, events, people. And also I take this time and step to consult with the researcher, Carlos, about any kind of clarifying questions that I can get answered. After that step, I then create the metadata. So these are the fields in which I was responsible for completing and ensuring accuracy for. Once those are completed using everything I learned in an interpretive step, I then do a quality check. So that's when I look at accuracy, consistency, taking a look at the controlled vocabulary and syntax, making sure that's all good. And if there are series, such as video series or photo series, they're all numbered correctly and in the same order. So to zoom in into my work here, I kind of pulled up an example. So I open it up, right? I see what's in front of me, this image here, and then I harvest the existing metadata that's already available. So digital photographs and videos, usually what happens is that the geotags are already saved upon the photo, along with the date and time in which it was taken. So this is like essential data for me to have. Once I can figure out where exactly in Cuba something's taken and when, I use that contextual information to then figure out what else is going on here. I also can identify that, okay, there's like a pretty specific subject here, this artwork. So I use Google reverse image searching as one of my primary tools to kind of help me figure out that subject. And using that tool, I can see that this is actually an artwork of Che Guevara. I zoom in even further, I see what the caption is. Using that plus the contextual information here, I can figure out a little bit more about the artist, about the art piece, if it has a name, if there's a defined artist or not, and all of that then gets put into the metadata fields. Sometimes I get a little bit easier of a video or a photo comes up. So in this video here, it doesn't have any harvestable like data already, but I'm like looking at it, I'm like, okay, I know I've seen this background. It is connected to this image here that already has the metadata available. So I know that these are taken in the same time, the same place, and that's how I kind of use pre-existing data to help out with that metadata entry. And then of course I watch the video and use that to help describe what's going on in the video itself. Some challenges to this project, I'm really coming in with a lack of context and familiarity. So a big learning point is to kind of work with this information that's not complete yet. So using some research, collaborating with the researcher to kind of get those going. Another big part is working within this like existing metadata framework, not just the spreadsheet and those metadata fields inherited, but the US-based metadata framework where I'm working about the topic of Cuba, and I'm looking at very Cuba-specific things, but the Library of Congress subject headings doesn't have a lot of Cuba-specific related subject keywords. So I had to be really creative of how to search for certain terms in my research and making things apply and be as specific as possible. Of course, this comes with being as accurate as possible, as efficient as possible. It's a large collection, 225 pieces. There's a certain time frame I'm working within. And then with all of it, making sure that it's intuitive and useful for somebody who's coming in and using this as a researcher's perspective, and that everything remains unbiased as well. So I'm coming in from a Western perspective, and then also on top of that, coming in from the organization of the Haitian American Museum, I wanted to make sure all of those things were accounted for. So I had a lovely time having a holistic intern experience here at HAMOC. It wasn't just the Cuba collection project, although that was one of the primary projects I was involved in, but I also had a great time working with the ascension and de-ascension of items, working with donors and donations, and also working within HAMOC's library and assisting Eve as necessary. Here are some examples of other events that I was able to contribute towards and participate in for HAMOC. The gala, for example, the conferences, interacting with the Haitian American community members in Chicago, and also interacting with the other museums in Chicago, doing these field visits and looking at archival and storage solutions at the Chinese American Museum, the National Museum of Mexican Art, and also the Ukrainian Art Museum was another museum we were able to collaborate with. So I'm really thankful that I was able to be a part of this community in a way that was specific towards museum practices, librarian practices, and archival practices. I also want to shout out some of the wonderful events that BMRC put on that I was able to attend, primarily the preservation workshop at Northwestern Library. That was a really wonderful workshop where we were able to be hands-on with tools and real-life artifacts. And I'm super happy in that photo there because I was able to take away a preservation toolkit with me that I still have on my desk. I also was able to attend an event BMRC hosted at the Newberry Library. So all in all, being able to be in these spaces of different libraries and academic institutions within my community, these experiences have really helped shape not just the theoretical side of what I learned, but the practical and the people side to everything, being able to make these connections here. So I'd like to acknowledge everybody at HAMOC who has really helped me in my experience here and has made me feel welcomed. Elsie, Carlos, Eve, and Romeo. I also want to say thank you to Samaya, Tolu, and Gabrielle for the wonderful work you guys do at BMRC and facilitating the work that we do as interns for our host sites, for checking in with us, for this events, for example, for Canada and the University of British Columbia, which is like an exciting time. All of these opportunities have been embedded in this internship, and I would just like to say thank you. My contact information is right up here. If you have any more questions or feedback, or if you would like to connect at any point, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, yes, my name is Kirk Stevens, and I'm going to be presenting on my work with Movin Legacy. So primarily I worked with a project that the GRIO, which stands for the Genealogical Research in Omni-Atlantic Traditions, and focused on cultural archiving. So there's a photograph of me, middle of library school, very little to no experience in archiving and records management. One of the goals of the GRIO project is to connect living cultural heritage through dance across the African diaspora. So interacting with this collection, since I should mention that I work primarily virtual, so about 99% virtual, which worked out perfectly for me. So it was a real godsend, a real connection to be connected with Movin Legacy. It really worked out for me timing wise, and interacting with the collection allowed me to travel virtually across West Africa and explore the important corridors within that space. And I have a short video explaining the GRIO project, 30 seconds. Just the video just basically mentions that we focus on oral histories, dance histories, lineage and legacy. The archive was primarily media focused, videos and images. So this is a video that was put together for social media. So when starting out, a little context helps, and what was very helpful for me was the importance of a taxonomy, being able to understand the context and the meaning behind the images and the videos that I'm working with, the collection. Outside of the wonderful videos, learning about the histories, the deep histories and the deep work behind the collection. This taxonomy document was useful for providing the ethnographic, historical, and geographic context for users interacting with the collection, and studying and reference it helped me learn the importance of controlled vocabulary when organizing subjects and activities. So my work mostly consisted of organizing records in cloud space, Google Drive, building metadata-rich databases and spreadsheets, and managing those databases and spreadsheets. And here's a few screenshot examples of the interfaces with about maybe hundreds, close to 1,000 records or videos, files that I have, that I spent a lot of time organizing in the Drive space, creating those databases, learning how the best way to create databases for retrieval, working on naming conventions and organizing by important metadata descriptions and categories. Here's a couple another photograph of a database that I created, and being able to apply those in spaces such as Omeka, having the proper metadata following standards such as doubling core. All of these are very useful practical skills. Some learning curves, some things that I've learned is just basically when you're dealing with so many files and so many media data, being able to work efficiently and fast, and there's some JavaScript, there's some code here that helped me to batch move files from the Google Drive into the spreadsheet, and to bring over certain metadata tags as well. And this was created in Google Apps Script, which allows you to use JavaScript across like Google Suite programs such as Google Drive, Sheets, etc. But that kind of experience is will be useful in other programs as well. So for this project or this internship, building location data, metadata was very essential for representing records and enabling users to explore through maps. I think that's one of the reasons why me and Movin Legacy connected. A little bit of background in geography and geographic information systems. So actually I built this using ArcGIS story maps. This is the spatial scope that I spent most of my time working in as far as this area of West Africa and the Manding population of Senegal, parts of Mali, Guinea, as well as Cape Verde and Gambia. So one of the projects that Movin Legacy is working on that we've been working on since I've come in is rebuilding the website from just a static, this is what we are and this is what we do, to making it interactive, allowing people to feel the collection, allow people to interact and learn about Movin Legacy through dance and what the organization does and how they fit into the collection. So I built this story map here, which is kind of something similar to what the Movin Legacy website will become as you scroll. This is an example of some of the videos. This is from social media. And as I scroll, it pans over to Lagos, Nigeria. There's a video that explains in the collection about Lagos and some descriptions as well. I didn't really complete that, and it goes, I put about 6 or 7, but I'll just stroll through them real quick, just to give an example of. So also, as mentioned before, learning to work with metadata tags on images and videos. I found a tool that helps extract metadata from images and videos, similar to what was shown in the previous presentation. Most videos, digital videos, have GPS tags and creation dates, metadata that's crucial for helping me locate down to the yard or the meter where a certain video or image was taken. For instance, like this is right outside of Bamako, Mali. So I was able to pinpoint where that video was taken. And so this was a expedition by the Movin Legacy founder, Jeffrey Page, last year, all across West Africa in that scope that I showed. So oftentimes I would have to cross-reference with him to see where a video or image was taken. But it was real helpful to learn how to just use those tools and find different ways to be efficient when it comes to metadata and extracting metadata. And so in conclusion, this experience has taught me that cultural archiving must center around community-defined knowledge and give authority and credit back to the people who are being represented. Oftentimes in traditional archiving systems tends to privilege written textual records, but community archives and cultural archives work in embodied knowledge, especially here with Movin Legacy, when we speak of dance and how the body speaks. These are not like tangible things. So when I first started off, I'm thinking, where's the collection? There's nothing physical to hold, but understanding the importance of knowledge transmitted through spoken word, through movement, through lineage, was very important, and really just opened my mind up to a different approach to archiving, particularly when it comes to communities, local community archives. So I'm very grateful for this experience. I learned a lot. I think it was very serendipitous to be connected with Movin Legacy. I hope to continue working with them, and I'm grateful for the BMRC for the opportunity, and everything is, I'm grateful to be here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Hey folks, y'all hear me? Yes. Okay, I'm Dr. Kamara. I'm with Shorefront Legacy Center through the BMRC. I commuted up there to Evanston where they're located. The Shorefront mission statement is to collect, preserve, and educate. I focus mostly on the first 2 things because even though I like to talk, that's a 3-hour commute. I can't be going up on these city tours. So because of that commute, we had to be very tightly focused on what we were doing, because I could be in and out for a very limited amount of time in the day and only twice a week. So the outcome, the fruit of my labor, was 52 updated finding aids, a more modernized website, a lot of back of the house things. If y'all have worked food service, you know the importance of the back of the house being clean. That's what I did. The reason why that matters is because Shorefront right now is going through a massive digitization project where a lot of the records, a lot of the things that we have here has to be made available to the community, to Evanston, to everyone in a way that meets them where they're at. I was very, very lucky that through the BMRC, I was able to go and get that train ticket from Urbana up to Evanston and come up twice a week and visit the building and go into that church basement and walk through the archive and get my grubby little hands on everything and figure out how we're going to make this accessible online, right? And what did that entail? Well, it's not glamorous. It was putting barcodes on things, moving things in and out of storage units, making sure that we were housing these artifacts and these items and these records correctly. Sometimes it's a bass guitar, sometimes it's a painting, sometimes it's obituaries, right? Good diversity of materials that reflects a very rich history and diverse community. Now, Shorefront prioritizes Black history on the North Shore of Chicago. That's a very broad scope. How do we bring that to people? What we worked on, and I'm gonna point at Reese and Stacy, where are you? Because those are our front of the house people. They're the ones who make sure that this stuff gets where it needs to go. If Andy and Marty, you're not escaping either. But they get the information where it needs to go. I just make sure it's a little bit presentable. And I could brag about the 52 finding aids and how strong I was carrying these paintings to the storage unit and all that. If I did have a slideshow, it would probably be me flexing, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Why I consider myself lucky to have been able to support Shorefront through this, and it was a very mutually supportive endeavor, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to come up here right now, is because I think that that's the embodiment of what the community archive is supposed to do. Now, I'm not gonna insult you by waxing poetic about why community archives matter. If you didn't think they did, you wouldn't be here. But how you meet the community is something that I think Shorefront does very well, and that's why I'm real happy to have that badge on my chest, is because Shorefront is partnering with external contractors who will remain nameless to bring these digitized VHS, CDs, videotapes, and things like that to a digitally accessible format where you can look at a website, or look at our website through a server that we're hosting in that little church basement. You can access that from anywhere. Why does that matter? Okay, I'm not gonna actually take questions from the class, but that matters because you're not always gonna be here either. We're leaving this building. I don't live in Evanston, do y'all? So if you wanna access Shorefront, you can look at our website, you can see the finding aids, but can you hold the records? Can you look at the paintings? But you want to, because I'm making it sound real good right now. You want to see what that Black history on the North Shore is like, and this is how we get there. So even though it sounds maybe limited in scope, a lot of logistics, a lot of grunt work, nothing really that I can put up on here, again, unless you want to see me flex carrying a painting. What I would like to applaud Shorefront for is giving me the bragging rights of being part of an organization that is making this media accessible in the ways that matter. For those of you who are in academia and working maybe in libraries or archives or museums that are tied closer to universities, you're familiar with Title II, which is some law that is universities are expected to abide to regarding the accessibility of their online resources. When I say accessibility, people might think of that. Can you use it on a screen reader? Can I access it on my iPad, my tablet, my laptop, whatever, right? Accessibility is broader than that though. Again, you can't always be in Evanston. How do we bring that to you? People like Larice and Stacy at Shorefront are doing that by getting help from students at Northwestern, help from folks like me, help from those independent contractors who are digitizing the media that we don't have the ability to play at home. I heard a kid on the bus yesterday ask what a CD was. These kids don't have VHS players at home. They can't play a tape. They don't know Be Kind, Rewind. But through modernizing the records, which is what Shorefront is doing with the grunt work, like making a touch tracker to see what records people are engaging with when they visit in person. When somebody makes that appointment, calls in, says, I want to see this or talk about my family or talk about Black history on the North Shore. How do we access that when they can't come in? Because community members are not always able to reach that. And this is where I start repeating myself, and I know my own speech patterns. So this is also where I'm going to start wrapping up. But because the community archive needs to access the community always, it is extremely important that work at Shorefront, even if it is putting on the barcodes, making the Excel sheets, changing these records, and making sure that we have something in the storage unit and something for people to visit on site. That's not exciting, that's not glamorous, but it gets things done, and that's how you can get the record from the shelf to the screen. And what I also really appreciate is, and I've only had limited involvement in this because of my time being primarily in the back of the house. When Shorefront operates as a community archive and is open for folks to come in, we do help with accessing these resources online. You do bring in students from the community, you do bring in community elders to come in and talk about their lived experience, make those donations, go through records that they have brought in the past or their family has brought in. Community engagement, I think, is the name of the game. And so instead of coming up here with my little list of deliverables, which is scattered and a little bit themeless, unless I rant philosophic like this, I suppose I would like to congratulate Shorefront for making strides that I didn't think Community Archive would have made. And they were willing to do this before the server was set up. They were willing to do this before the touch tracker was developed, which means, in a cynical professional way, I was able to help develop these resources. And in a broader, more impactful way, I was able to see Shorefront develop as a digital resource into something that you can have in your pocket. So that's about where, yeah, I think that's a good time for me to stop. I have no visual aids to show you. I have shorefront.com.
I was an intern at the National Public Housing Museum, and most of the work I was doing was with oral history. A little bit about the National Public Housing Museum. It's located in the last building of the historic Jane Addams home. So if you get the chance to visit, I highly recommend it. The museum's free, but they also have a guided tour where they converted a portion of the building to be reminiscent of what the housing might have looked like in the past. And there's little features like, from what I saw, there's like a garbage chute that's from then. And the tour guide was amazing at being able to point all those things out. And who doesn't love an immersive kind of tour? So highly recommend it. And actually, one of the things that they were able to put back into place that was from the original, if you go to the next slide, is the animal court. I'm hoping you can see it even with the lighting. But this is a photo of the animal court back in 1930 to 1940. And as you can see, there's a bunch of kids. And the thing I'm talking about is that feature right there. It's these statues of animals that was just in the courthouse where the home was. It's like kind of in between the buildings. And they were actually able to put the statues right back where they used to be. So in the next slide. So there they are now. And so I think it's one of the coolest features of the museum. It was one of the places I was guided to go see when I first visited. And especially when you listen to the oral histories, a lot of them do talk about these structures and what it meant to them. And so to go back a little bit, I actually first heard about the National Public Housing Museum when I was in undergrad, back in like 2022, maybe 2023. Lisa actually came to the University of Michigan, where I went for my bachelor's, and she gave this whole, presentation about this museum that hadn't been placed yet, but she was talking about just the type of work that they were doing, the way that they were having this community-focused oral history archive in this space. And as someone who's from, I can't say Chicago, I'm from the North Shore suburbs of Chicago, and throughout college, people would give me a lot of backlash if I said I was from Chicago, so I know not to say that anymore. I promise. The only reason I would say that is because people don't know my town, but they know Chicago. But besides the point, knowing that a space like this was opening up here got me really excited. I wasn't graduated just yet, but I was excited to be able to come back and just kind of see it. And lo and behold, I was matched there with BMRC, which was amazing. When I saw it on the list of options, I was praying. I'm like, please let me be there. And it worked out. So what I focused the most was oral histories. As I mentioned, I live in the North Shore suburbs. It's not too far from here. We love the metro, we love public transportation, but most of the work I was doing was pretty virtual. I would still go to the museum space to kind of, just to see it, but then also whenever they had events, I would try my best to come down. A lot of the times I had class at the exact same time they would have an event, and I was so sad, but on the weekends, thankfully when they had things, I'd be able to go. But Yeah, so most of what I did was oral history work. And so this is just a typical process. It's super bare bones. But again, so we start with the interview. You begin with listening to an interview. I did not conduct any of the interviews that I was transcribing because most of them were backlogged from like 2017, 2018. But so where I would usually start is with the transcribing of the interview. So we could do this with or without AI. Usually the person that interviewed, they're allowed to say like they don't want AI to be used. And especially nowadays, it is quote unquote easier, but I do think having the ability to say like, no, I don't want to use it, perfectly fine with me. I've had past oral history experiences where I had to listen and just type it all out. So I'm very used to not using AI. So that's just a little aside. After transcribing it, I would have the finding aid. The National Public Housing Museum, of course, they already have many interviews available. So they had a finding aid already prepared for me, which was super helpful. And what's really cool about the finding aid that they did have, I'll get back to it a little later, but a lot of it is created with the community in mind and working with the community as well, which I think is so important, especially because this museum, even though it's the National the National Public Housing Museum, a lot of what they do is very much community-centered in Chicago. So I find it really awesome that they're super intentional about having the community involved. And by community, I mean those who either live in public housing, have lived in public housing, or are just like in that space or in that realm. So after the finding aid, usually what we'll do is a follow-up. So it's a follow-up with the interviewee to double check any information. And if we have any questions for them, usually like names, places, and just to make sure that things are okay with them. So here's a quick, just little logos of some of the programs that I used. We first started off using Otter AI, but towards the end, we actually moved to Descript. Just for not a big reason why. I think Otter AI was just kind of a little shortcoming on some stuff, so they decided to switch over to Descript. And something else I forgot to mention in the little timeline was I would sometimes have to work on the audio. So I don't know if you guys have ever conducted interviews, but it's so important to like speak clearly into the mic, to not have background noise. Thankfully, not a lot of them, but a few of them, I could not hear like the interviewer. And I'm like, I don't know what they're asking. So thankfully, we have programs, very simple programs like Audacity, where I was able to learn just more of the audio side. I'm not a super technical person, so it was a little bit of a learning curve, but just to make sure that those people, once it's available to the public, that they're able to actually hear everything and get the full story. Very important. And so as I was mentioning the finding aid, this is just a really small screenshot of what is on the finding aid, but this is the themes and the topics. Some of the things I'll talk about, obviously like public housing, Section 8 housing and mixed income housing, racism, housing and republic policy. These are just some of the things that are prevalent in a lot of the stories. We mark it on here. So then when they are available to the public, it's easier to find and it's easier to search through that metadata. And so I think my biggest takeaway with this internship, as I previously mentioned, I have done oral history work in the past. A lot of it was community archiving. I worked with the Chinese Historical Society of Southern California. I worked in oral histories of like the different universities I attended, but all these spaces are very different. And I think something that I learn every time I'm in a new space, but also here, is there's not one size that fits all. Like I need to learn how to really be mindful and respectful of a community, especially when I'm not a part of it. And so something that I really noticed was like wording. I think that's something that's so important in transcribing. I don't know about you guys, I always have Grammarly in my documents, and it always tries to autocorrect everything. And sometimes, sure, it's helpful, like here's a comma or something. But I think especially, I should mention a lot of the interviews I was archiving were people that were predominantly Black or of the African American community. And so, when you think of like AAVE, like there's different wordings, there's different things like that where I don't want to take that away from them. So just being really intentional about making sure that the wording is correct, that I'm only changing what needs to be changed, like a letter or something. And if I'm unsure, asking, I would ask my supervisor, or if I'm able to talk with the interviewee, then we would be able to get that. But yeah, I think connecting with Chicago was one of the greatest takeaways I was able to have. Thinking about like the history of Chicago, again, I was born and raised in the suburbs, but I love the city.
the city still has my heart. But something I was made aware of this year was that it was the 25-year anniversary of Plan for Transformation. The Plan for Transformation was clearly 25 years ago, where they were saying that they were going to make mixed income housing and more affordable housing to replace the public housing that they tore down. They still haven't really done that. And 25 years is a very long time. And so right when I started my internship, the museum was actually having talks about like, how do we commemorate this? And like, what is the language that we use when we say it's the anniversary? But it's not a positive thing, yet it's something the community needs to be aware of. So, you know, having that right at the beginning of my internship, I think really kind of set the tone for the rest. And then also what has and hasn't changed. When you listen to the oral histories, they're stories of resilience. You know, they went through a lot in whatever capacity in their lives, but there was so much resilience there. And, you know, they often would talk about, I'll go to the last point, like locations around the city. They would talk about street names or like on the corner of like here and here. And even I'm really bad with streets. So like I would always have to Google it. Sometimes I'd take a trip down to the city and I'd be like, okay, this is where they're talking about. So that actually helped me connect to the city way more. But I think seeing, again, what hasn't changed in however long they were talking. So, you know, some of the interviewers were in their 60s or their 50s. My most recent one, she is in her mid-30s, and hearing about all their stories of what has changed in the city and what hasn't, and just historically, how much work there is left to do with public housing really hasn't gotten fixed at all, in my opinion. But besides the point. And then also with the events at the National Public Housing Museum, there's an event tomorrow. There's an exhibition opening. If anyone is interested, I think you have to RSVP, but it's free. They do have a lot of events to try to bring the community together. They had a community art, like where they had booths earlier in the year. And I think it's really awesome to just get plugged in that way if you guys are in the area. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I want to thank BMRC so much for giving me this opportunity to really work here. I'm so sorry if I went over time. And a quick shout out to Liu, who's not here, but my amazing supervisor who was able to help me through all this.
Hello, I'm Ellie. I use they, them pronouns. Through the BMRC, I was partnered with Honeypot Performance, and they work with Chicago Black Social Culture Map. Basically, Honeypot Performance is a Afro-feminist creative expression performance conglomerate coalition that focuses on using performance and creative artistic expression to identify themes and showcase themes of belonging and identity in a world, or preserving that world. So partnering, or I'm sorry, I don't like public speaking. Honeypot Performance collaborates with historians, and through that they have this Chicago Black Social Culture Map, which preserves Chicago's cultural lineage. And I worked with both Chicago Black Social Culture Map and Honeypot Performance, but towards the end it was more CBSCM. Next slide, please. Some of the projects, just a little bit of things that I worked on, and insights from that. As I started off, I met with a previous archivist at Honeypot Performance and Chicago Black Social Culture Map. His name was Micah, and the current archivist is also named Micah. But Micah helped me learn about using Omeka, which was super interesting because Omeka has its challenges, but I learned a lot about the process of the strengths of a map as something that we can use as a concept of seeing like the Chicago history, preserving a lot of different cultural spots such as clubs, dance halls, and diners, and how those all connect to Chicago history. However, there was a lot of challenges with the usability of Omeka. I also talked with other interns about how they use different maps, and throughout this internship, I've been speaking with Micah, the current archivist, about ways that we can improve our map. Content, I started by I checked listed and unlisted YouTube videos on YouTube, which comes up with the recurring theme of difficulty of digital preservation in a world where technology is currently evolving, and having a performance space. It's important to recognize, like, how are we going to preserve this in a world where, you know, YouTube might not be here forever. And then I audited Dropbox files for a format which comes the same sort of digital preservation questions about born digital material and metadata. And then I reviewed metadata standards, which was also interesting because Micah and I were talking about the ways that we can create standard policies, which I think is a great lesson to have moving forward, and a good discussion that we had. I learned a lot about using spreadsheets. I began the internship at editing for accessibility of the website and the Chicago Black social culture map, resources, performances, panels, that sort of thing. And I compiled presenter information to everyone who had been a part of that. And as I was doing all of this, I learned there's so many things on spreadsheets that I can do that I didn't know how to do. So that was super cool. And then I also looked at different technology options that we can use moving forward for digitization for events like community archiving days and things like that. The coolest thing that I'm most excited to talk about was the work that I learned from and learned on is the Doctors exhibit, which is an exhibit that was primarily digital on the website that has then been turned into a physical exhibit, and the event actually opens on May 29th. I believe it's 6 to 10. And that's going to be at Honey Pot's location at the First Church of the Brethren. I don't know the exact address, but and you can go to the next slide. So that was super cool because if you're not familiar with the Doctors, they are a group of teens that started this Doctors performance persona out of the Mendel Catholic High School in the west side of Chicago. This was really important for me in learning more about music, and throughout this entire experience at Honey Pot, I've learned so much about music and Chicago culture and history. But I also think it's important for everyone who learns about the Doctors to recognize and celebrate like young Black and Brown influential figures in like leading to Chicago culture and history, and specifically in the realm of music and performance. So I think a lot of times they recognize like clubs and how clubs were influenced in house music, but also the Doctors were super influential in the house music revolution, and especially influential in like 1970s. This was a big form of like social life for teens that was a positive way for them to be involved in community. For that project, it was a lot of finding and creation. So again, using a spreadsheet, learning how to like making the spreadsheet work to what I wanted, and filling in a lot of metadata with Micah we had a lot of images on the website, a lot of description on the website, a lot of things that we didn't really know where it came from or what it was or who it was describing. So that required a lot of research, filling out image description, format, subjects, doing further notes to make a better description of what was happening in this, finding my sources and researching. And then a lot of scrolling through the Mendel Catholic High School yearbook page, which is actually very well digitized. And so that then Micah put into Airtable, and we created the full finding aid. And then just summarizing lessons learned, I learned a lot about technology, as I said, Google Sheets, the challenges of Omeka, Dropbox, and different formats on their Airtable. But I also learned, most importantly, about communication. I learned at Table.History Harvest, which was one of the first events that I went to. And I felt like that was such a cool experience of being exposed to an event, and really models like the importance of community archives because of how much work that Honey Pot is doing with the community. I think that everyone there, but there was just such an effort to like get to know everyone, and I felt like that was what a community archive is about. Is it's like, hi, what's your name? How can I like pinpoint you in like your Chicago history? Or like, you know, a lot of people be like, oh, I was born and raised in the West Side, and like the importance of location, which connects back to Omeka and the map, the importance of like their role in house music. So really learned a lot about community there. I met with Micah and I learned more about archiving practices, learned a lot about the importance of specific language and finding aids. And then I also experienced quite a lot of health issues, so I learned about how to communicate through that. And then specifically policies and metadata standards, archival policies, accessibility, and sources is a big thing that I'll take away into my career. But I think that like the biggest thing that I learned from this internship is the importance of like working within the community instead of for the community. I learned a lot about the importance of community archiving, about having these archives that exist that preserve culture and history in ways that like maybe like I didn't know that honeypot existed, and that's why it's so important that it exists, and that's why it's so important that Black Metropolis Research Consortium exists, and that this is why it's my responsibility to continue looking and learning, and I'm going to tell everyone I know about this. And I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. Thank you all. Thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. I'm the final presenter for today, so give me grace. My name is Kelly Smith, and I was placed with the Southside Home Movie Project. And so just a kind of small about me, I was born and raised in Southside Chicago. So this, this organization is already like close to home. I'm literally working in my own community. I don't think it could get any better than that. And I earned my MS in Library and Information Science with Chicago State University. And I earned it in December. I actually attended the graduation last week, so that was really nice. Thank you. And I chose a specialization in archives and records management. I was actually encouraged by my sister, she's a librarian with Chicago Public Libraries, and she really told me how library science degrees aren't just about libraries. It's so many different things you can do with that degree. And so when she told me that, I was like, oh, it's a lot of like work experience that I've had. I work with the federal government a lot, and I just appreciate doing work that's more about helping people and not just like, corporations and things like that. I like feeling like I'm really helping others and building them up. And so a degree that can kind of help me go even further in that is what the LIS degree helped me with. And so I started with Southside Home Movie Project in March, just this March. So I'm still a little new. So I'm actually still working with them right now and learning a lot of good things from them. And so about SSHMP, the Southside Home Movie Project is a community-based archival initiative founded by Dr. Jacqueline Stewart in 2005, and they're with the University of Chicago. And so the project collects, preserves, digitizes, and researches home movies that are created by the residents of Chicago's South Side. So they have over 1,200 reels of film, and it includes 8mm, 16mm, and Super 8. And there are black and white films, color films, sound films, silent films, and the materials can date anywhere from the 1930s to the 1980s. And I have just some stills and little images showing it. And so in the middle is the Bud Billigan Parade, and also that one as well. And that is from a film that was showing a tennis match. And I think it's really interesting to see how, at least personally, these are areas that I've seen and still see to this day, like in a time capsule almost. And there's so much history that is present in these films that if it weren't for this organization, it would be lost. And so many people should have access to this, whether it's academia or just personal use, anybody, to be able to see how important it is to see what things used to be, how things have changed, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But it is important nonetheless to see these in action. So specifically my internship role, I'm working with the Ramon Williams collection. It is one of their largest collections to date, with over 300 films. I primarily describe scenes in the audiovisual materials. I create and assign subject tags. I'll conduct historical research, and I'll identify film locations. I'll estimate or try to confirm dates of the film. Sometimes one of the challenges can be that you'll think you'll watch a video or a film and see like, oh, this could be the 70s. Their hair looks a certain way, their clothes look a certain way. But we can't make that assumption if it's not clearly put on there, whether it's from the donors themselves, or sometimes you can see in the films, it'll show dates on the events or anything like that. We want to be accurate with the history, so we can't, that's something I learned, that I can't make assumptions. We don't want to make assumptions about people's genders. We don't want to make assumptions about children, who they are, and things like that. Even figures. I'll look at a person in the film and say, that looks like an important person. But I can't say, I think it's this person, unless I'm for sure certain this is that person, because that can cause issues with people who want to use this for whatever research or personal reasons. Just learning a lot from that and improving the accessibility and discoverability of these archival materials. What all of us who presented, that's like one of the big things about archives in general. I learned it in my degree program. Everything is, it's so easy to think history isn't that important when we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these things where you just take pictures and videos and that's it, and we have it on our phones. We think that's what's important now, but these old films and everything we work with is just as important, if not more important, because if they get lost, when the people who created these things aren't here with us anymore, how do we get that information anymore? We have to make sure it stays accessible to those who are here today and for the future generations. And so I just really think it's so interesting and important that I get to work directly in my own community as well, preserving this history. And so with this specific collection, Ramon Williams, he was a Black Chicago electrician and filmmaker. He documented mainly Bronzeville, Chicago's South Side, and the American South in general. And he filmed community events, nightlife, parades, everyday life. He had a lot of different things that he filmed. It's a really huge collection. So when I'm going through them, I'm seeing all kinds of really cool events. Sometimes it's just outtake reels that even if they weren't attributed to a specific thing, it's still really cool things to see. And so he's done a lot of videos on the Republican Parade. I've seen black and white films from like the 40s for the Republican Parade to the color films, and to see how they change in the organizations that used to march through the parade. I'm like, I didn't know these organizations existed back then, and things like that. Chicago Defender events will show up. I've gone through a lot of community fashion shows, and that'll be really interesting because what we would probably deem maybe culturally insensitive today is what they just did, decades ago. And so I'll have to learn how to properly annotate that. I can't censor history either, but there's a way that I can preserve it so that the public can get access to it in the correct way that's also still accurate. There's films that I've gone through that have events with Joe Louis, the boxer, and again, it's just, at least this specific collection is so huge, and there's so many interesting events I still will be going through even now. And so I just think it's really cool that I get to see that firsthand. And so as far as what I've learned and still learning, projects like the SSHMP, they help preserve histories that are often missing from traditional archives and media narratives. I've learned how to do archival metadata creation, historical research methods. I've learned digital accessibility practices, critical observation analyses, and just personally, I've just learned the importance of community archives. Again, I've always known and learned about generally archives and the importance of it, but this is about as intimate as it gets for me as an intern, helping my own community that I grew up in, and just learning how important it is for that to be given to the public, and that I'm there to be one of those people to do it. How archives are preserve underrepresented histories. It's so easy for certain groups to have all of the archives, of their groups, and then certain groups, very underrepresented, don't get shown as much. And so things like specifically the South Side getting the love that they deserve and shown to everybody is extremely important. And just the value of making rare materials accessible to everyone. Online, digitally, it's easy to say we're going to lock these behind where only people have to request access and have to jump through hoops to be able to see it. And it's really important that we make important histories like this easily accessible to people. They don't have to go in person. Like the other presenters said, it's really important we make it in this digital age easy for the digital, our young people and everything to be like, hey, I don't want to go to the museum. I just want to be able to look at this on the phone. And it's like, you can. It's right here. There's no excuse. So just learning about that in a more intimate way and not just through the lectures and things that I learned in school, I think is really important for myself. And so, I'm still learning through it, and I know it's pretty quick, but I'm just really excited to still be helping literally right now. And I'm really glad that I was chosen not only by the BMRC, but to work with this specific organization is really close to my heart. And you couldn't have told me that I would be working with something that is literally where I was born and grew up in. And so these are things that I might possibly go through films and see literal family members. I'm wondering if I'll see that when I go through these films. And I think that's really amazing. And so I just want to give a special thanks to BMRC, SHMP, and especially my professor back at CAUSU, Dr. Black. She's the one who told me about this opportunity, and she's the best. And so, yeah, thank you for having me.
So thank you for sharing your experiences, and I just want us to give them a round of applause for a final time. Yeah. So now we have the BMRC board chairman who's gonna give us a closing.
For about 10 or 11 years, the name that came after BMRC chair, board chair was Stephen Adams. And so I recently assumed this opportunity, right? I really wanted to make sure I used the right word. And the timing of the opportunity, this being the BMRC's 20th year anniversary and the range of things that are going on, including this, I want to then acknowledge Dr. Ahmad, our executive director. She has been outstanding, caring, patient, and I think she deserves a round of applause as well. To wrap this part of it up, to kind of put a bow on this, I am also a FOCAS partner, and I'm not jealous at all. And I'm not I'm not jealous of this tremendous, no. It's 9 institutions, including the BMRC across the country, and not all of them are doing this work, right? Because not all of them have the same mission as the BMRC. And in Dominican, there are not a lot. Let's put it this way: I don't come across a lot of folks in the profession in general that look like me, let alone think like me. So this grant is right in a really sweet spot, just in general, around cultural heritage, around Blackness, right? Not just Black history, but Blackness, allowing that to have an opportunity to be expressed, because Blackness is a little different than being an African American, right? There's a whole cultural heritage perspective there. And just to be able to see how that work is really resonating through and shining through in this particular community partner FOCAS partner. What we've been trying to do is things that are similar. We have the West Town Museum that's in Maywood, which is a Underground Railroad site, as well as 2 culturally rich organizers, the Southwest Organizing Project, as well as ACT, Austin Coming Together. And when you get a chance to see things develop from small places, but do great things, like that again is inspiring. So one of the things that inside of all the things that I do that keep me excited about, one, being from Chicago, being a Black man from Chicago, and my father being, like many folks' fathers are, kind of his own level of historian, instilling a certain part of a pride inside of being Black, and then being Black in Chicago. This work is just, when you get, like, the more layers you get, the more important you see it as. The more layers you get, the more important that you see it. And then one final thing, I'm a little bit of a geek. I'm an engineer's son. You lit me up with the GIS and how the data matter and the location, particularly how that can be used around, I teach a digital humanities and curation course, and how that can be inside of digital humanities and storytelling. So from one geek, I don't know if your dad was an engineer, to another, I particularly enjoyed that. And then in closing, I would like to say that beyond just the FOCAS work that the BMRC does, they do a tremendous amount of things, and you don't survive 20 years and then thrive within 20 years without some fiscal support. So whether you fiscally support the organization or not, or know someone who can, this level of work, there's no too small, and there's definitely no too big. So keep us in mind on those Giving Tuesdays and those other times when, or particularly interns, when y'all become big shots, and go ahead and throw a couple of nickels back. Without further ado, I'll turn it back over to our executive director and our host.
So last year I had more of a hand in FOCAS and arranging things, but this year Tolu's really taken the mantle and has really been influential in organizing things, including today. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you making it here and making going through the traffic. The BMRC always needs your support, whether or not that's a kind word, $20, thinking about, coming to our events. So whatever, we always need support. This is not a time. It's never been easy to be Black in America, because that's the whole point of America. But it is not getting easier. So we appreciate all of your support. And thank you once again to the Haitian American Museum of Chicago. Excited to see them thrive. Congratulations on your new building. So come back another time if you want to take a tour. Some of the art is for sale. So they have also things that are for sale here, gifts and things like that. And once again, just thank you all for your support. Thank you.